While Ret Paladins were having a meltdown in PvE discords, Blizzard was cooking up some class tuning with a bunch of nerfs. Meanwhile, the PvP medallion set bonus was buffed to give everyone more stamina, which will slow the game down slightly. Our smartest viewers know that buffs like these are small passive buffs to some defensives, while being nerfs to the win conditions of entire specs. And if you haven't noticed by now, the start of the season is always complete chaos. Flavor of the Month specs are coming out of nowhere to kick the butts off of everyone else. It's hard to keep up. Even gearing is always a confusing process. But if you are a skill cap member, we've taken all the anxiety away thanks to our add-on that now shows BIS lists directly in-game, including gear, enchants, and gems, updating automatically each week. Of course, these aren't the only perks skill cap members enjoy, as you even get fully configured add-on profiles, which now includes 2-in-1 support for PvE. We've also got crazy effective courses on our website, including how to counter every class, the best positioning guides on the internet, and of course, the #1 class courses for gaining rating. Skillcapped has everything you'll need to hit your PvP goals. And that's because we continue to offer a rank up guarantee where we promise you can gain at least 400 rating while using our service. So what are you waiting for? Visit skillcap.com today using the exclusive discount link below. But now let's take a look at what's happening to Melee this week. After a brutal nerf to Anti-Magic Zone in 11.2, Blizzard finally decided it was time to give DK some love by buffing this spell back to its original glory. And now AMZ will be a relevant defensive once again. Unfortunately, this came with more damage nerfs to both DK specs. Unholy was hit with a 10% nerf to Death Coil, which is one of their main damage spells, but this probably won't be too game-changing. By now, you've probably seen just how much damage Unholy DKs can do during their cooldown windows, which will continue to be extra lethal. Overall, we think we actually undervalued Unholy DK going into this patch, and we think it's a possible contender for the S tier. As far as Frost is concerned, the spec was hit with a substantial nerf to Reaper's Mark, which was a spell originally buffed in the patch. For the uninitiated, Reaper's Mark is a nasty debuff that explodes after reaching 40 stacks, and prior to the nerf, it was hitting for upwards of 10 million. Frost DK Burst will still be good, but less gimmicky overall, and we are sticking by our previous A tier ranking. The only other melee to get nerfed was Assassination and Outlaw Rogues, who both got a damage reduction to their infamous coin one-shots. This is a very weird spell to explain, but the TLDR is that if the rogue gets lucky, they can sometimes do absurd damage with these coins, which automatically proc from their rotation as the Fate-bound hero spec. And since coins deal cosmic damage, it means the damage can actually be buffed by Shiv. It's a very weird interaction, but in any case, expect to see less gimmicky damage from both Asa and Outlaw Rogues this week. And that brings us to our updated rankings for Melee in Season 3, where we've made a few changes since our original predictions. For now, we will be moving Survival Hunter to the S tier, with the one caveat being that the spec continues to have a high skill floor. Right now, the amount of damage all Hunter specs can do is a bit absurd thanks to major reworks in the 11.2 patch. Unfortunately, we'll be moving Feral Druid down a tier, since it sort of has the reverse problem, having a high skill floor while being exceptionally weak right now compared to other Melee. With a nerf to Maim in 11.2, we expected Feral to struggle a bit, and it really seems to be lagging behind. But now let's pivot to look at the changes to range DPS in Season 3. Up first, we have two separate nerfs to Boomkin, targeting the duration of their burst window and their overall damage. As a reminder, Boomkin was Omega buffed going into this season, with a 16% overall damage increase, so we don't expect this change to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. It's still going to be one of the best casters in the next few weeks, especially if it can get a favorable healer meta. As long as the resto druids aren't S tier, Boomy should be absolutely fine. Frostfire Mages also got a big nerf to Frostfire Bolt, which ironically nerfs Frost the hardest despite being the worst mage spec. Honestly, it's a bit hard to gauge where Frost lands on a tier list right now, especially considering how broken and popular Arcane has been over the past few weeks. Whenever one of these pure DPS classes have one broken spec, it makes our rankings a bit tough. In any case, we're sticking by our prediction that Frost Mage will still probably be A tier. At the end of the day, it is a mage after all. Arcane was also hit with a nerf to its barrage damage, but before you get too excited, we still think it will be one of the best specs in Solo Shuffle. Out of all things, Blizzard decided to nerf Arcane's Soul since it was a significant part of those massive barrage one-shots over the past few weeks. This was a buff that procced after their Sun Fury Phoenix expired. However, what most people don't realize is that the Phoenix itself does an absurd amount of damage, and the primary burst window for Arcane largely remains unaffected. The same is true for Fire Mage, who got a nerf to Hyperthermia of all things, which really doesn't affect their true win condition at all, while also getting a flat 4% damage buff for PvE reasons. Don't get us wrong, Hyperthermia was pretty broken, but it was a random slot machine buff that Fire Mages can only benefit from while Combustion is not active. Do you see the issue there? The target of these nerfs was the damage after their big cooldown window, which is exactly what we're seeing with Arcane. In any case, here's our updated rankings for range DPS in Season 3. Honestly, there are a lot of specs that seem exceptionally good right now and possibly slept on, including Elemental Shaman, who we mentioned before got some pretty juicy buffs in the 11.2 patch, while also having one of this season's best tier sets. You might not have seen many Ellies so far this season, but we think they are well positioned to be one of the best casters. The only question mark we have is Shadow Priest, who got a few quality of life changes going into the patch, but were plagued by a Shadow Crash bug in the early season. For now, they're still a bit of a wild card, but we think they will land somewhere in the A tier. But now let's wrap things up by looking at the healer changes this week, where absolutely nothing changed. Awkward, but we will be adjusting our ranking. So here's the problem. Almost every healer seems pretty good right now, except for maybe one or two. But if there's one spec we might have slept on too hard, it's definitely Resto Shaman. Despite the fact that it got the same AoE healing buff that every healer was given in 11.2, we neglected to consider the fact that the Shaman tier set is pretty good this season, and the overall meta was fairly decent for this spec, with Boomkins and Demon Hunters being solid. For now, we'll be moving Resto Shaman up to the S tier. Structurally, we still think this healer has some issues that are almost impossible to avoid regardless of tuning. It's fairly easy to grief and simple to counter with add-ons that scream at you to kill totems, but right now, its healing output is strong enough to overcome these issues. And even though Resto Druids have been struggling a bit in Shuffle, they could be much better off this week with the overall buff to stamina. Generally speaking, Druids do best when the game slows down, and with more gear, we could see this spec as a possible contender for the S tier in a few weeks. On the flip side, there really are no bad healers right now in Solo Shuffle, or at least it's really hard to tell what healer was bad in the chaotic first week of the season. If we had to name the weakest healer, it would probably be Disciplined Priest, but for the most part, every healer seems highly competitive. So even though this is going to look really weird, most healers are going to land somewhere around the A tier for now, with Holy Paladins and Resto Shamans looking the strongest overall going into week 2. And if you want to rank up fast this season, you need to check out our courses on how to counter every class in PvP. We've also got the best position guides on the internet, and our famous class courses which teach you how to master your spec. We take concepts and break them down into bite-sized pieces, kind of like quests, but instead of experience, you gain rating. We've also upgraded our UI in Season 3 with brand new features including in-game BIS lists, and now complete 2-in-1 hot swapping between PvP and PvE. As always, we're continuing to offer our rank up guarantee, where we literally promise you will gain rating by using our service. Be sure to click the link below to get started with an exclusive discount for Season 2. For now, we want to thank you all for watching. See you soon.